tell me what it is that we're going to talk about tonight? Did anybody get a sneak peek on like the Instagram or something and see what we're talking about?
Identity.
Hey, identity. So we've been going through all these Old Testament characters, and we've been studying some of their character traits and what sets them apart and what makes them faithful followers of God. And so our very last one we're going to talk about is identity. And this month we've been studying Daniel, and we're going to spend maybe like a minute talking about Daniel, but I promise it'll fit in. But we're going to spend the majority of our night talking about our identity and where we place it and where we should place it. And before I start, I just want to ask anybody in here if they can give me a good explanation of what identity theft is. Does anyone know what identity theft is, or have you been a victim of it?
When people steal your stuff and use it against you.
Just your stuff, or what do we, someone give me a good definition.
When someone steals your identity is when basically they try to pretend to be you.
Yeah.
Whether it is to buy something or to, I guess.
So they may steal your like credit cards or your social security number and basically all your important information and use it to go out and buy a new car or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's identity theft, and identity theft hasn't even been around that long. It's been only like a couple of decades since it's been a real thing, but now it's really prevalent in America. And I looked at some statistics on identity theft, and actually they say 16 million people are victims of identity theft every single year. That's a lot of people. So the little graphic I put up there to make it more understandable is that that's 4 times the population of the state of Oklahoma is how many people are affected by identity theft every single year. Isn't that crazy? That's why you don't use the same password at every single login, because you'll be one of the 16 million.
But that's less than half the population.
Amen. So, has anybody in here ever been a victim of it? Like legitimately? You have? That's why you know what it is. And that stings, right? But it's really, as bad as it is being a victim, what if I told us tonight that every single one of us is not a victim of identity theft, but rather the culprit, the person who pulled off the identity theft? And what I mean by that is that we had an identity, but yet we went somewhere else and took something and placed it upon ourselves and called it, that's who we are, that's our identity. Every single one of us is guilty of that crime tonight. Every single one of us. And so why is it important that we understand where our identity lies? That we understand who it is that we really are? Why is that important? I would argue that this is probably the most important talk that we're going to have this semester, because we are undergoing an identity crisis in America right now. We are just like grasping left and right, looking for something that's going to give us meaning or something that's going to give us purpose. And we're looking literally everywhere possible to find that. You can see it in our classrooms, in our offices, and you can even see it today in our courtroom. We're just looking to place our identity in absolutely anything that's going to give us meaning. And so why is it important that we know our identity? I would say that the second most important thing that we know and think is what we know about ourselves. Only next to what we think about God in importance is what we think about ourselves. If you have the right view of the first one, you will have a right view of the second one. But it's so important for us to know what it is that we think about ourselves. And so when I was studying for this, I was looking up a couple of other sermons and reading some commentaries, and I found this video of this guy talking about a couple of places where we draw our identity from, a couple of really common places. And so I kind of condensed them and put them into 4 separate ones, and then I made this PowerPoint that's really colorful. And it's on the next slide, not that one. Holla. And the 4 things are what I do, which is the red, what I achieve, what I've done, and what others say and think. And so these are kind of the 4 things we're going to look at of where we pull our identity and sense of self-worth from. So the first one is what I do. Now, this is all about what you're involved in, what you do, what your hobbies are. It may be a sport you play, it may be a club you're a part of, an organization, or maybe just something that you're known for. For example, when I was in high school, I was an athlete, and I really took a lot of pride in my athletics, but I also really took a lot of pride in being someone who was very studious and really worked hard in the classroom too. So I really took a lot of pride in just being like an all-around good person. It's kind of what I would describe myself as. And if somebody asked me who I was, I would say, yeah, I'm a football player, or yeah, I'm a basketball player. And that would probably be the first thing out of my mouth. And chances are, a lot of us in the room would respond the exact same way. We would respond with, when someone asks, who are you? We respond with what we do rather than who we are. And so the problem with that, finding our identity in the things we do, is you're not going to do those things forever. So I use my example of football. So I was a football player in high school. But when was the last time I put on pads and a helmet and stepped on a field on a Friday night? 2008 was the last time. That's a long time ago. So am I a football player anymore? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would get destroyed. So, the problem with placing our identity in the things we do is that if you do that, you will never have a lasting identity. Your identity will always be shifting from thing to thing as you start doing different things. And you'll never have that rock solid concrete identity and picture of who you really are, because it'll be, oh no, I'm a dancer. Oh wait, no, now I'm a sorority girl. Oh wait, no, now I'm a consultant. Oh wait, no, now I'm a mom. And next thing you know, you don't know who you are because you've been 20 different things. And so that's the first thing we find our identity in, is what we do. The second one is what we achieve. Now, we all can picture one person in our head who is kind of like the cream of the crop. I wish Jay was here because he would laugh at that. But we picture somebody who is absolutely the best at what they do. It may be you, it may be somebody, but we can all think about somebody who's just like at the top of their class, everything, like the world's absolute best, right? We all know somebody who's maybe like the valedictorian of your class, or maybe the best soccer player in your class, or just something like that. We can all picture somebody who's like that, can't we? Now, the problem is that we as people tend to turn those pursuits of things and goals into who we are. We like to say, man, I'm so fixated on becoming the fastest 400-meter open 400 runner in the state of Oklahoma, and that becomes your goal, and that becomes all you are. Or you become so fixated on the example I used before, you become so fixated on graduating as the valedictorian and going to Stanford and being that person. And the problem with that is number one, that stirs up comparison in your hearts, because you're consistently going to be looking at other people and placing where you are compared to others. And your worth is always going to be defined by how you stack up next to the competition. And so an example I'm going to use again from my high school days. I'm just going to beat up on the high school version of Travis tonight and say one of the things that I struggled with at the end of my high school career and beginning of my college career was a superlative I was awarded when I was a senior in high school. Now, I will make an aside and say I think superlatives are the stupidest thing and that we do in high school, because it's like, oh, most athletic, most beautiful, most likely to become president or something like that. It's like, what are these even founded on? You're 18 years old. You're not going to be the president. Like, that's not going to happen. Let's be real. And so, for me, I was voted most likely to succeed. And I thought that was so weird, because I'm like, what have I even done that makes people think that I'm going to go out there to succeed? Like, that doesn't matter. I can look back on that now and say that doesn't matter, because that was high school, and most of the things we do in high school doesn't matter. But for the moment and for the first couple of years of my college experience, that really got to me, because I was so fixated on this idea that, man, I'm supposed to succeed. I'm supposed to go out there and excel and be number one and climb the ladder. And that's really how I lived my life my first couple of years in college. I was somebody who was trying to gain status, and somebody who was trying to just get that next, attain that next level of status, so people can look at me like, oh wow, he's a success, whatever their definition of success is. So the problem with this achievement mindset and placing our identity in what we achieve is that you're going to constantly be defined by those successes and failures. You're going to be consistently measuring yourself up against someone else. And no matter what, one thing in life is you know you're going to fail, and another thing in life is you know someone's going to be better than you. So you're consistently never going to measure up to that perfect standard. The third one that we're looking at, that we find our identity in, is the things that we've done. And this is both right and wrong. And so I want us to stop and think about something that you may have done in your life that you just absolutely regret. Chances are every single one of us can pinpoint at least one moment in our life where we made a decision that you just really wish God would allow someone to invent a time machine and you can go back and change that decision. Like, I know for me personally, like, there's a couple of things in my life that I just, honestly, looking back, I can learn from it, but in the moment, if I went back, it's like, man, I know for a fact I wouldn't make that decision because that was idiotic. But what tends to happen with these kind of decisions is we tend to dwell on them, and we tend to become so fixated on what these things are, and maybe something that happened to you or something that you did starts becoming who you are. And you can't get past that mental block of, man, I really screwed up. Nobody will ever look at me the same, or nobody is ever going to respect me anymore. And that, you start to take that on. You start speaking that over yourself, and that becomes who you are. And the problem with that, finding our identity in the things we've done, is that you're going to end up living your life in a cycle of guilt and shame. You're going to continually feel guilty about what you've done, and you're going to continually feel the weight of the shame, that burden of that shame of the things you've done, because we're all people and we're all going to mess up and do really stupid things. That's going to happen. And if you try to place and hold on to the things that you've done as your identity and you let that become who you are, then that's going to be your life cycle. It's going to be guilt and shame all over again, and you're never going to get past it.